consider that the mythical Florida Man is actually just our understanding of the centaur's antics through the mist.
Oh, I never leave home without my party cannon!
Besides, I really do like horses. Hey, you geeks! With the Percy Jackson bandwagon careening towards the season finale of the show, I figured I'd better build up my Jackson cred before the show catches out and rank the original 5 books. The books that I read when I was a wee teenager and now have reread for your enjoyment. Because these reviews are also dealing in my nostalgia, I'm not going to go into the recently released 6th book or the up-and-coming 7th book where it appears Percy will piss off Elaine, Min, and Avienda. And I'm slamming all 5 of these books into one video because my other series reviewing YA Greek mythology-inspired books whose show option has been picked up by Disney Plus ain't doing so hot on the algorithm.
That's weirdly specific.
So, here are my rankings and reviews of the OG Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Full spoilers ahead. The Lightning Thief. This book is pure gold. Even as a teenager, seeing it moldy and wrinkled on the lost and found shelf, the words inside the cover were gripping. Returning to it as an adult, I discovered that my conspicuous insistence on lowercasing g's for minor gods comes from Chiron. God, capital G, God. That's a different matter altogether. We shan't deal with the metaphysical, gods plural, as in great beings that control the forces of nature and human endeavors, the immortal gods of Olympus. That's a smaller matter. Beyond this solid base of mythological philosophy, this book has everything. The hero's journey, the magic of friendship, betrayal, mystery, intrigue. Basically everything I look for in a book today can be found in The Lightning Thief. Not to mention Rick Riordan's sense of humor.
You know what I love about Appa the most? His sense of humor.
Which is unique as the book is written in Percy's first-person narration. And Percy is not trying to be funny. He's trying to explain the absurd world around him with the words he has available, which for a 12-year-old are even more absurd. It's brilliant and something I didn't fully appreciate until I was an adult. The Sea of Monsters. Middle school Jackie would have put this as good, because she and I still have a strong distaste for Odyssey retellings. In fact, the only reason why I like the Odyssey is because it ends in an archery competition.
You know me now.
And I do love Robin Hood stories and mythical stories ending in lots of violence. Though The Sea of Monsters doesn't really rely on either of those tropes that I love so dearly. Rather, it relies on the dreaded island-hopping meandering plot, which works in this situation because, well, Riordan did the undead Pirates of the Caribbean before they were cool.
You're off the edge of the map, mate. Here there be monsters.
And he opted not to end in a direct allegory for Christian heaven without any blood. Instead, we get a mad stampede of Floridians at a party in Miami. And that did involve a little bit of archery and a little bit of blood, which is just enough to satisfy this girl. And B-tier antagonist Tantalus was quite fun. So this goes up to fantastic. This book isn't quite gold because as a sequel it suffers from power scaling issues. Percy went toe-to-toe with an Olympian god in the first book, and in this book, he can barely stand up to Luke.
I mean, what happened?
To be fair to Riordan, this problem really arose because he went full throttle and nailed it in the first book, but realizing that he had 4 more books to write, he realized he had to slow things down a bit if he wanted Percy's strength and character development to last that long. And it does. Barely. The Titan's Curse. This is the book where the momentum almost stops the series dead. Talking to my reading buddy about these books that he also read as a teenager, he didn't remember this book at all. I remembered certain episodes of it, but it had definitely been jumbled in with the details of the labyrinth.
You make sure they remember forever the night they played the Titans.
Yeah, no, not really, no. The sum of this book isn't greater than its parts for me, even though it has great parts. It's threaded together on the necessary entry of the series of teenage boy angst and relationship drama.
Angst, 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 angst.
And Percy is also balancing all of these emotions against the overriding plot point that he is probably the chosen one. Having read a few books on this premise, I do have to commend Riordan for cramming this all into one book and giving Percy a free choice to decide that he would be the chosen one out of a sense of older brotherly love for Nico D'Angelo. And Percy's fraternal affection is something that Riordan had been building up in the previous book. Nico D'Angelo, for me, in this book, is a whiny, annoying kid, and I did not like him the first time. I still do not like him as an adult in this book, but because Percy likes him, I can now appreciate that that makes Percy a better person. This book can't be fantastic, not only because I'm pedantic, but because I can't stomach, as an adult, that Annabeth's, battered woman syndrome towards Luke in her insistence that there's still good in him no matter how many times he betrays her is played off not as her fatal flaw, but as one of her more heroic qualities. This trope was very popular in the early 2000s, and I can't help but wonder if that's sort of why so many millennials have therapists now.
I just know before this is over, I'm gonna need a whole lot of serious therapy. Look at my eye twitching.
I just can't even. So, this is going in good. Just good. If you want to see this video in a director's cut, head on over to my Patreon and join up. The Battle of the Labyrinth. Back on the track of tropes that I love to see in fantasy, we have the maze that is continent-spanning, defying laws of physics and relativity, and may send the unwary traveler into bouts of madness as the route for our villains to invade our hero's stronghold.
That's weirdly specific.
This pleases me greatly as an adult, but kind of peeves me as a kid. As a kid, I loved summer camp, and at the end of the Titan's Curse, we were promised a battle for the summer camp. So I thought we were going to get a book based now entirely in Camp Half-Blood.
And they're gone again.
On this now third westwardly journey, Riordan at least does stretch out his writing chops in new and innovative ways. He had previously given each character their own goal, but they had all kind of wrapped neatly into Percy's arc by the end of each book so far, except for the 2 Artemis huntresses who, having their own thing, were summarily killed off.
I'm expendable. I'm the guy in the episode who dies to prove the situation is serious.
Now, Annabeth, Grover, and Tyson all are given their own agency and own agendas that, while affecting Percy's experience, doesn't wrap neatly into his. The death of the god Pan was a beautiful, haunting scene that meant so much to Grover, but didn't seem to affect Percy's endgame that directly. That scene stuck with me for all of these years, but everything else kind of faded away. Upon rereading, I can see that's because for all the words that this is Annabeth's quest, her plot is primarily a love square between her, Luke, and Percy as her triangle, and then Percy is in the triangle between her and Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And then also Calypso for good measure. Percy just kind of woke up to be the hottest thing since sliced toast in this book.
Look there he goes, isn't he dreaming?
Given that the shipping chart nowadays for Riordan's books appears to be an Enneagram, I suppose this is the stuff that his fans really go for, and I mean, I've gone down with a fair number of ships. None of them were in this series.
In the bed and the little one said, if you wanna be wed, make up your mind.
Also, I now take umbrage with the issue that Tyson's plot with Briare's kind of plays off Briare's probable episodes of PTSD as him just being cowardly, that Briare's needs to just get over off screen before he can come back and be a hero at the end. That thread may be a bit problematic for my taste, but it is woven beautifully into this great final battle that did eventually come back to camp, where Grover unleashes his Pan powers, and Percy has some adversaries to face, but ultimately, he's not the star of this book. One last note I have on this book is that it scratches the fourth wall pretty darn hard. Riordan had previously given social commentary in general, from the satyrs and dryads about the evils of pollution and the preservation of the wild, but that still felt like it worked in this pseudo-magical realm. Now, Annabeth had to face off with the Sphinx, who is the personification of No Child Left Behind, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare had some words to say about the removal of art from the school. When I read this as a kid, I found this highly relatable, as I was also a product of this artless, bubble-filling fact memorization educational machine.
I ain't gonna be part of your system, man.
But now, several years later, I wonder if contemporary kids are getting as much out of it. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I am willing to chalk up the Wheel of Time parallels, complete with the eye patch, to just general mythical archetypes, but I did notice lastly that Kronos promises that he always, as a Lord of Time, pays his debts.
A Lannister always pays his debts.
If that's what I think it is, that aged poorly. So, on the whole, this book is fantastic for me. The Last Olympian. This book is practically gold on so many levels, but I have one caveat. On the positive, I could recall Hestia's scene without a reread. I don't see here exactly a definitive hearth by which a single solitary girl is sitting. Let me know if you do in the comments. Visiting Poseidon's underwater palace for me was so exciting as a first-time reader and again on the reread. And it also pleased me greatly that we weren't going on some westwardly quest again. Rather, we were going to stand and fight. Not at camp, but New York is close enough.
We can't back down.
Returning as an adult, I can really see how this book is structurally different from its predecessors, and this series really kind of encapsulates the change from the 90s to the 20 teens in young adult fiction. We begin with Magic Boy getting lightly isekai'd into an alternative world where he is the chosen one, and end at a book that is really the story of a bunch of heroes who have been fighting a war for a year, and now this book just focuses on the last few battles. The last one of which focuses on a giant tower / mountain, yet somehow doesn't end up being Die Hard.
That's weirdly specific.
This new structure, although still in Percy's limited POV, does allow for other heroes to get their own arcs and satisfying conclusions. The Apollo cabin Ares dynamic of reenacting the Iliad, complete with Selena stealing Clarissa's armor, is great. Just replace Hector with a Draken and you get the highlights. Riordan is, after all, still writing Greek mythology for children with short attention spans.
Squirrel!
While classical mythology has a really good excuse for not having the best concept of what is moral and immoral in everything, Riordan still chose to focus the story on Annabeth's undying love for Luke as a brother, but it's still very much, don't abandon the bad boy, girl. Your love can save him. And I am so not comfortable with that. I'm not quite sure how I feel about Percy's arc coming down to the decision to give Luke the knife because as both of their weakness is Annabeth. On the one hand, sure, it's not about being strength and powerful and brawny, but on the other hand, if Percy's one weakness is Annabeth, and Annabeth is actually key to saving the world, then Percy doesn't have any weaknesses.
You can't beat him. He has no weaknesses. He's gonna...
And yet, I have some great childhood memories of this book. I thought Rachel Elizabeth Dare fulfilling the fate of the Oracle of Delphi, whose backstory we see, along with the powers of home and hearth on display, were such cool concepts and truly woman empowering. So this is still gold for my initial emotional impact, though I do often wonder now how much of that emotional impact this book had was actually for the better.
Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the memories.
Thanks for watching. Bye!